guys, and welcome to One More Page, a podcast for lovers of kids' books.
Packed full of interviews, book reviews and industry gossip, not to mention the occasional fart joke, One More Page is your fortnightly foray into the world of children's books.
Whether you're a kid, mum, dad, author, illustrator, teacher, librarian, or just one of those people who never grew up, this is the podcast for you. So, let's meet your hosts.
I'm Kate, and I love to sing in the shower, dance in the rain, and bask in the sun. With my sunscreen on, of course.
I'm Liz, and I still wonder which world is at the top of the faraway tree today.
I'm Nat, and I seem to have misplaced my pants. Mom, have you seen my pants? Mom, I can't do this in my pajamas. Or can I? And this is... One More Page! Welcome back to One More Page. Did you miss us? No, of course you did. Well, not to worry, because here we are again, and this week we're talking all about libraries and why they are pretty much our favourite place in the world. Well, libraries and the zoo. I love the zoo.
This week we'll be talking to Bethany McDonald, the Family Programs Coordinator with the State Library of Victoria. We'll also be getting some great book recommendations from the kids at the wonderful Alphabet Soup book blog.
But first, it's shout-out time. And today, Kate has the One More Page megaphone. What are you shouting out to today, Kate?
Well, I'd like to give a shout out to all the authors and illustrators whose books were nominated by the Children's Book Council of Australia as notable books for 2017. Woohoo! Yay! That was actually a really good crowd sound effect this time, Nat.
Thanks, I've been practicing.
Good job. Yeah, so this is a really amazing showcase of some of the best children's books produced by Australian authors and illustrators last year, so it's definitely worth taking a look. Nat, was there anything in particular that caught your eye this year on the list?
I think the real question is what didn't catch my eye, Kate. This year's notables list is one of the strongest ever. There's heaps of books on there that we've already mentioned on the show, which just goes to show what great taste we have, such as Tristan Banks' book The Fall, Rodney Loses It, Once Upon a Small Rhinoceros, The Secrets We Share, Grandma Forgets by Paul Russell and last episode's guest Nikki Johnson, and Deborah Tidball's The Scared Book, which we did a video recommendation for Halloween. You can check it out on the videos page of our website. It's an awesome book. But there's a few of my other faves that have popped up on there too, such as The Sloth Who Came to Stay by Vivian Toh and Margaret Wild. I just love this picture book, and I love the message that in today's day and age we might just all need to slow down a little bit, put down our phones, and enjoy some of the simple moments with our families. And of course, How to Be by Bren McDibble. It's a really refreshing take on a sort of Australian dystopian future where climate change has led to the extinction of bees and children must pollinate by hand. It's a real unexpected favourite of mine this year, and I think you'll love it. And of course, hot favourite Nevermore, which is just pretty much killing it everywhere you look at the moment. But one of the biggest things to come from this year's list is the huge growth in my to-be-read pile. I had a good look at all the books on the list that I hadn't read yet, and here's what's been added to my TBR pile. First off, A Cardboard Palace by Alan L. Webster, published by Midnight Sun Publishing. Described as a modern Dickens set in Paris. I love the cover, I love the blurb, I love Oliver Twist and armies of child thieves, and I love Paris, so I can only assume that I am going to love this one. Also, My Friend Tertius, a picture book by Corinne Fenton and Owen Swan, published by Allen and Unwin, set in pre-war Hong Kong about a World War II codebreaker and his pet gibbon. I can't even imagine how this is translated into a picture book, but I cannot wait to see how they do it. And finally, Trouble in the New Kid by Kate Whittle, published by Scholastic. Great title, tick. Fantasy adventure, tick. Dragons, tick. Funny, tick. Series, tick. I just can't wait to get stuck into this one. So I have to be honest in saying that I'm absolutely just skimming the surface when it comes to what this list has to offer. We'll put the link in the show notes, and I suggest you do exactly what we're going to do and just work your way through them one by one. A huge congratulations to all the authors and illustrators who made this year's list. It's all very, very well deserved.
Sure is, and I think it really shows what a thriving children's book industry we have in Australia too. All right, well, now it's time for our guest interview, and today we'll be speaking to someone from the State Library of Victoria.
That's right. Today we're chatting to Bethany McDonald. She's the Family Programs Coordinator there, and she's responsible for rolling out a big range of literacy programs for kids and families.
Wow, sounds fantastic. Let's check it out.
Yeah!
Bethany, thanks for joining us today at One More Page.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So we're really big library fans at One More Page. I was wondering if you can share with us why you think libraries are so important, especially for kids.
I'm glad to hear that you're library fans because having worked in one for, it's coming up 12 years now, I think that not only are they really important, but I think that the idea of what a library is has changed a lot since I've been here. Because I think originally a lot of people, you say library and they just think of books because we certainly do have lots of them in our collection. But for me, I think libraries, it's more than just books. So it's really important to think about libraries as a place for accessing and processing information. And that's something that is important at any age. But I think particularly so for younger visitors these days. I mean, the State Library Victoria is an institution where children were traditionally not catered for. They weren't exactly welcomed when the building opened. We've been around for a long time, so we opened in 1856. And apparently when the building first opened, it was a library for everyone as long as people were over the age of 14 years and had clean hands, so they didn't mess up any of the books.
Oh, my goodness.
14-year-old limit was sort of seen as when you would want to attract people into the building to learn about things, because if you were younger than that, they weren't really set up to cater for that. And we didn't have any works of fiction in the collection either back then, because it was seen as a place of learning, and recreational reading was sort of not very high on the agenda. But I think it's really important for us because, I mean, working in literacy development now, like we know how important it is to create those foundations for reading at such a young age, and also how hard it is to catch up if you don't have that really good start. So I'm glad that, the idea of what a library is changing, and particularly in how they cater for younger people as well.
Definitely. So along those lines, I hear that you've got a new children's quarter being built at your library, and it will open in 2020. Is that right?
Yes, well, it's part of Vision 2020. So hopefully it might even be open towards the end of 2019. We're not sure yet. Depends on how long the building takes. But it is very exciting. So the library is going quite a big redevelopment. So the children's quarter is just part of that. And we'll actually be in a space that's currently known as Experimedia. So it's this big sort of indoor courtyard space. And it's a really great space for it because you can see the history of the building, because it's bordered by Queen's Hall, which is the oldest part of the library. So that's the bit from 1856. And then one of the other walls is the outside wall of the domed reading room, which is from 1913. So it's one of those spaces where you can stand and you can see like the whole story of the library in all these different chapters of history. And the entire space is going to be a dedicated space for children and families, which is something that we haven't had before. Because usually if we've had a children's area, it's been sort of in a shared space. The other thing about the space that is really good is that we had some kids to help us design it. So we sort of did a bit of a co-design process where we asked some of our early years audiences and some of our school audiences to give us some ideas about some of the things they would like to see. And they came up with some amazing ideas. And in fact, we're having a mezzanine in the space, which is going to be called the Castle or the Treehouse.
Oh, cool.
And I think that came from some of the ideas from the kids, that they wanted this sort of private space and a bit elevated as well. And so the idea is it's this mezzanine that's going to look down on the rest of the quarter, and that's for the older kids, the 8 to 12-year-olds, to sort of, have their own sort of special kind of space up there.
Oh, that sounds great. Now, because you get to see all the latest kids' books as part of your role, I'm wondering if you have noticed any trends or positive responses to particular books.
I think just for me, visually, I love all the books with bright illustrations, and I've seen quite a lot of those come out lately that, with technology for printing and stuff these days, we can have some absolutely beautiful things come out. And I know that, books with flaps are always very popular. I have a 2-year-old, so it's a very big thing for him at the moment. And even actually my older son just wants to take all the little kids' books so he can just play with all the flaps in them. I think there is a bit more of a trend lately I've seen with books with sort of an environmental theme or tackling sort of moral issues at a very young age. And it's the same with books about things like well-being and resilience, some of which I think there are probably some adults who could benefit from reading as well. But this idea that I think a lot of people who make children's books are not scared to tackle sort of bigger issues that may have not really been seen as appropriate for children earlier on. Even, concepts like feminism, to introduce them to kids at a young age, I think is really important. And I've definitely seen that there is more of a trend in that sort of thing for younger readers as well.
I was wondering about gaps in terms of what kinds of topics or themes have you noticed are missing, or is there anything people are searching for that you just kind of can't find at the moment?
We've been talking about our Playpod themes for next year, actually, and we sort of have been sort of toying with the idea of having a space theme, because we haven't done one of them. And I did realise the other day that we were looking for a good book about space that was like a children's book, and there weren't actually as many out there as I thought there would be, which was surprising to me, because I sort of thought, that's the kind of, a theme that you find in like early childhood. And I was a bit surprised that there weren't more books on that topic. But I think generally for us, when we think about our collection and what we try to represent in the space, because we have quite a culturally diverse audience, we do try to reflect that in the space as well. In fact, someone sent me a link to a really good article, I think it was from the US, that had a survey attached for making your library culturally responsive. So not just diverse, but actually culturally responsive was the term that they used. And it was a really interesting way to look at sort of auditing the books that you have in your collection and working out if they do actually represent a diverse culture. And there were things like looking at the protagonists, how many are male, how many are female, even if they're not human characters, often they'll sort of be described in a certain way, or, they'll have pronouns to say, he or she. And I think that it's one of those things that I never really thought about until I started, firstly, doing more work with children's books, but also, secondly, having a lot more children's books in my house. That even like subconsciously, sometimes I will be like, I'll go to the zoo with my kids and we'll be talking about the animals, and I'll be like, oh, look at that one over there. What do you think he's doing? And then in my mind, I'll have to think, hang on, that is just as likely to be a female animal as a male animal if it's not, immediately physically obvious. And I realised that it's often because a lot of books that have animal characters in them, particularly ones that I sort of remember from my childhood, it was like almost every animal was a he, unless it was the mum. But it was just one of those things where it was like, you'd have this family and usually you'd have sort of all these male characters in it. And it's one of those things that I think people are really looking for books that do have more strong female characters in them for kids. And they're looking for ones that represent the diversity of the world that we live in. Also, from our point of view, I think some more Indigenous stories would be great as well, particularly in picture book format or for slightly older kids as well.
Definitely. So I'm wondering if you've actually noticed any standout books at Storytime in terms of crowd favourites.
There's a couple that always go down really well. One of them is The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Another one is Where is the Green Sheep, which was actually one of our Playpod themes in 2017. And there's always one of those kids who, it's usually a slightly older child or one of them who's a little bit, maybe a bit tired, maybe a bit over it, who you start off something like, where is the green sheep? And you do that, but where is the green sheep? And one kid at the front will just be like, they're under the bush asleep. We've read this one before. We'll have to do the whole, no spoilers. Or are they? Maybe they've moved, who knows? But that one's always goes down well. And things that are rhyming as well, or that have a bit of interaction. I know a lot of the Julia Donaldson titles, because they've got that sort of good rhythm to them. I think it helps, particularly for children, if English is maybe not their first language, that kind of rhyming aspect really helps to sort of hook them in. Also, yesterday in our Storytime, we did Snap Went Chester, which is Tanya Cox and David Miller. And because I was holding the book, Chester is a crocodile and he does a lot of snapping. And I like to snap when Chester snaps, but obviously because I was holding the book, I couldn't do that. So I got everyone else to join in, and every time he snapped, I got them all to snap their hands. And they really like that one too, because it makes them feel like they're sort of being part of the story. So I think there's some of our, our go-tos for if we want to really get everyone involved.
Interesting, yeah. I can see why some of those are definitely the favourites, especially the interactive elements. I think kids love getting involved in stories, don't they, and feeling a part of it.
Yeah.
So I was wondering what some of your favourite kids' books were when you were a kid and also now.
I think when I was a child, and some of these I think my mum still has, which is nice because hopefully my kids can read them at some stage. I loved Roald Dahl and Enid Blyton. We also had this series of books. I think they were from about 1980. Richard Harvey and Stuart Kettle did this series, and they were rhyming books. And I just remember it was like The Pig in the Wig. There was like The Squirrel of Wirral, Dolphin D and the Chimpanzee, like all these like strange animal characters, and they all had these little quirks, and they had like little morals and things at the end. But I just remember like having this series of books and just requesting to have them read over and over and over again, like to the point where, I could recite them off by heart. But they're probably like some of the lesser known ones. Nowadays, though, I really love. I'm like I said, I'm a sucker for the really nice bright illustrations. So I really like the Britta Teckentrup books. I also really like Mark Martin books. He's a local author and illustrator. Actually, one of his is my son Jack's favourite book at the moment. It's called Max, and it's about a seagull. So as far as my son Jack is concerned, it's actually called Max Seagull.
Oh, that's so cute. Well, we're about to wrap up now, but first it's time for our Fast 5 questions. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, great. So, do you prefer scary or funny stories?
I think funny for me. I like a bit of comedy. And I don't get easily scared, but I will say that, if it's very dark and something comes up and boos in the dark, then I'll get a little bit scared.
Yeah. And do you prefer picture books with heart or fart?
I have to say heart for me, but having two small boys, I think that, their vote would most definitely be the fart.
If you were stranded on a desert island and you could only have one thing to eat, what would it be?
Oh, see, I'm a bit of a savor. I'm not a sweet tooth. I'm a bit of a savoury tooth. But having said that, if it's only one thing, that's hard because I love food so much. I would want all of the things. You know what? I reckon I'd go something snacky, like pretzels, because I love pretzels. Although that would make me thirsty on a desert island, wouldn't it? I haven't thought this through. I've got to think about survival here. I'll have my pretzels, but I hope I have a ready supply of drinking water as well.
Yeah. Okay. And if you could go anywhere in the world tomorrow for free, where would you choose?
That's a hard one too. I would choose to go to Costa Rica because my friend lives there, and I am going to go and visit her in 2019. But I would go to visit her and see her family and be in the rainforest with the sloths and the toucans, because it is like seeing cartoon creatures in real life.
So my last question, if you're locked in the library overnight, which aisle or section would you choose to hang out in?
Oh, if I was and I have been in the library at night, and it's a beautiful place at night, I would choose to be in the children's literature area. There are some beautiful books, but there's actually some things that are related to that which are technically in the pictures collection. So I would want to spend some time in the pictures collection, because they've got part of that is the Drumkeen collection, which has a whole lot of illustrations and dummy books and sort of unpublished material from authors and illustrators that was collected over a number of years and held at the Drumkeen homestead until a lot of it was given to the State Library Archives. And there are some beautiful illustrations.
Lovely. So before you go, if anyone would like to come along to any of your programs or to a storytime session, can you just show up, or should they book first?
You can just show up to most of our programs. We do some school holiday workshops, so they're for slightly older kids, and you need to book for them. But most of them you can just drop in, show up, and all of the information is available on our website for the session times and things like that.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us at One More Page today. And we'll put links to the State Library of Victoria's children's programs in our show notes. And if you're lucky enough to live in Melbourne, we hope you can check them out. So thanks again, Bethany.
Thanks for having me, Liz.
That was so cool, Liz. I love Bethany. And the State Library of Victoria is heading up some awesome initiatives like the 1,000 Books Before School program, which is about instilling the love of reading in kids from the very, very start when they're little and tiny. And you can check out your local library for what they're doing for kids, because there's always something fun going on for families and kids at all libraries.
Yeah, there definitely is. I really enjoyed hearing from Bethany about all of their kids' programs, and I thought it was actually really interesting hearing about the kinds of books that visitors to the library there want more of and what they respond to the most at story time. So any writers that might be listening today, take note.
Yeah, and you're in for a treat next episode as well, because I'm going to be talking to Jessica Walton, the author of Introducing Teddy, which is a picture book about gender identity and transition. Jess's dad, Tina, is transgender, and she herself is queer and disabled, and she's really interested in inclusiveness and diversity in picture books. So we're going to be chatting all about that next episode.
I'm really excited about this one. It's great to see a shift coming in regards to diverse content and representation in kids' books. And I feel extremely lucky that we get to speak to people like Jess who are leading that charge. Ba-ba-da!
Yeah, I can't wait to hear that one as well. But right now, it's time for What You're Reading. Kate, what have you been reading lately?
Well, I was lucky enough to receive an advanced copy of Missing by Sue Whiting from Walker Books Australia. So thanks, Walker. It's just come out, and I have to say I can't recommend this book enough. I read lots of books, I like lots of books, and I even like lots of books a lot, but it's only the really special ones that blow me away, and this was one of those. It's a middle grade novel about a girl whose mother has gone missing on a work trip to Panama. Her father is completely falling apart, and months after the disappearance, he ends up dragging his reluctant daughter over to Panama to search for her. It's set partly in Panama, part in Australia around the time of the disappearance, and it's as much an emotional journey as it is a mystery. I highly recommend this for kids around 11 and up.
I can't wait to read this one. I actually think, Walker Books, you should know that you almost broke up this podcast because you only said one book and Kate demanded to take it home first, and we had a bit of a punch-up, and, well, I let her win. She didn't win on, because she's not that strong. I let her win, but I bags it next.
All right, we're going to have to fight Liz next.
No, she's too scary.
Yeah, watch out.
Yeah, she's got massive biceps, that is.
So, Nat, what have you been reading?
Okay, so I have no idea how I missed this book until now because it was published in 2015. But the other day I grabbed a bunch of picture books from the library and took a picnic blanket down to the park, and beneath the dappled shade of a giant jacaranda tree, yes, it's true, I did feel like I was in my very own picture book, I discovered Small and Big by Karen Collum and Ben Wood, and published by Windy Hollow Books. It's the story of a boy called Big and his friend Small, who is the cutest little creature that I think I've ever seen in a picture book. They're very different. Big is loud and confident and cares about the big things, and Small is shy and quiet and pays attention to all the little things in life. But when Small gets lost in a big city, they learn that the most important thing is each other. It's such a beautiful book with a big heart, and I just love the illustrations of the Small. I really, really want a Small for Christmas. So if anyone out there has a Small, can you please give it to me for Christmas? So if you're like me and have somehow managed to miss this book so far, then get yourself a picnic rug, a sunny day, and a giant jacaranda, and be prepared to have your little heart sing.
Wow, it sounds like we're being blown away all over the place this week.
Oh, it's so cute. There's this one illustration of Small when he finds Big. Don't mean to spoil the ending, but they find each other, duh. And he does this like flying leap into Big's arms, and it's the cutest illustration. I want to rip him out of the page.
No, I want to read
Are
it.
they humans, Nat, or are they animals?
So Big's a boy,
Yeah.
and Small's a thing. I don't know what he is. He's this little
like a
kind
little
of,
monster or something.
I think he's a stuffed toy, but I think he's supposed to be, but obviously he's like alive in the book.
Yeah.
But he's like this little kind of like yellow dragon. I don't want to offend Ben by like giving him any kind of like description because it'll never do Small justice. He just is a Small.
Okay, I definitely have to find that. That sounds adorable.
Yeah. And how about you, Liz? What have you been reading lately?
So lately I've been reading a book called The New Friend, and this is from the Ginger Green Playdate Queen series. And this one's a fantastic first reader series. It's by Kim Kane with illustrations by John Davis, and it's published by Hardy Grant Egmont. And this one is this series, each book is super short. They've each only got about 3 chapters, and there's lots of illustrations, so they're perfect for first-time readers. And in each one there's a playdate hosted by Ginger Green, who declares herself a playdate queen. And each book focuses on a different friend and a new obstacle for Ginger Green to navigate. And in The New Friend, Sky from ballet is coming over, and Sky turns out to be a bit shy, and her dad won't leave. And his presence seriously hinders Ginger Green's creativity. So it's kind of like he's sabotaged the playdate until Ginger Green takes charge. And so this is actually the first chapter book series that one of my own kids first read all by themselves. So I highly recommend it as a first independent read. It's one of those books that's like the perfect transition from picture books to chapter books.
I love that, the playdate queen.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm pretty sure that I would have been the playdate queen when I was a little kid.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you would have.
Well, hopefully all this book talk has worked up a bookish appetite in our listeners because we have a book pack prize to give away. Although I don't actually recommend eating it.
No, we don't want to do that. So this week we're going to give away 2 beautiful picture books. One is called The Posy Ring, and it's by award-winning author illustrator Bob Graham. And the other one is called Slowly Slowly by Tina Clark with illustrations by Helene Magason. And it's set in Africa, and it's a new take on an old proverb. Then as well as the 2 picture books, we've got a book for our older readers who might be listening, and it's a copy of The Secrets We Share written by Nova Wheatman. This one is a sequel to The Secrets We Keep, and it's another fantastic contemporary middle grade read, and it's perfect for those transitioning from primary to high school, like the character in the book is.
Wow, what a great collection we've got this week. So if you want to be in the running, visit the competitions page on our website at onemorepagepodcast.com/win and tell us in 25 words or less why you love your library.
Yawny, yawny, McYawny, too many adults, too much blah, 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 blah. It's now time for the best and by far the most important part of the show. Kids, make some popcorn with the lid off, shake up the fizzy drink and hand it to a grown-up, and snort a bag of sherbet because it's time for...
Kids Capers!
Okay, so this week I have organised some very impressive special guests. You guys have heard of the online magazine Alphabet Soup, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, so for anyone who's been living in an igloo, Alphabet Soup is for kids who love reading and writing. And if you love us, which of course you do, then you'll love them because they have book reviews, author interviews, published kids writing, competitions, the works. And they have a group of kids called the Top Reads Team, who are like little human libraries, and they do monthly recommendations for the mag. So who better to talk to on our library episode than the world's smallest librarians? Let's meet 6-year-old Albie, 8-year-old Anishka, 9-year-old Xavier, and 11-year-old Matilda, and pick their little book brains.
Kids Capers!
First up from the Top Reads team, we have Anishka. Hi Anishka, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Can you tell us how old you are, Anishka?
I'm 8.
You're 8 years old. Aha, okay. And so I hear that not only are you a big reader, but you also love to write. Can you tell me where your love of reading and writing came from?
When I was little, I used to say rhymes and my mum used to write them down.
Ah.
Then when I was 5, I entered a poetry competition and won a prize. And then my mum and dad said if you want to be a good writer, you have to read lots of books. So when I was little, I used to go to the library every weekend.
Well, I think your mum and dad are probably pretty smart. And so that poem, the one that won the competition, what was that poem about?
Nature.
And what do you like to write about?
Things that I can describe, like nature and emotion.
And so when you write about nature, do you go outside and like get inspiration and then write about it?
I look out my window.
Oh, well, that's pretty handy. What's outside your window?
There used to be a tree and we have sunflowers.
All right, well, we better talk about some books, Anishka, because that's why we're here. So you're going to do some recommendations for us for kids your age, which is 8. So your first one is, can you tell me a book that you can read over and over and over and over again?
Tashi is a book that you can read over and over again. And in the book, it always starts with Tashi and Jack at school or Tashi going to Jack's house. And then in the middle, Tashi always tells Jack a story. They always talk about this adventure Tashi had.
Yeah, they sound great. And why do you like the Tashi books so much?
Because of the adventures, and I get to know more adventures.
Yeah, it's good, huh? Because sometimes when you read books, you get to go on adventures without even leaving your own home. Well, for the second one, can you tell me a book that you'd recommend to other kids that has taught you something?
The Friendship Matchmaker is a book that taught me something. In the book, Laura is the friendship matchmaker and Emily Wong comes to her school. Then they have a fight about whose friendship rules are best. Laura won, but she admitted her friendship rules were not so good.
And what did you learn from it?
How to maintain friendship and other friendship tips.
Oh, of course, everybody needs good friendship tips. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Anishka.
Thank you.
Now, next up we have Xavier. He's from the Northern Territory. All right. Hi, Xavier. Welcome to One More Page. Thanks for joining us today. How did you become part of the Top Reads team?
My mum just signed me in without asking.
Good one, Mum. And how long have you been on part of the team?
2 years.
Oh, so she signed you on, but you must like it if you're still there, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me, what do you reckon makes a good book?
Probably being a plot and sometimes the sequel's pretty good too. A sequel means there's going to be another one, so you can look forward to it.
What's your favourite kind of book? Like, are you into adventures or fantasy or...
Adventures.
What do you really not like about a book? What makes a bad book?
No plot, no reason to keep reading, ends in one book, and just boring.
So can you remind me how old you are, Xavier?
9.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to get you to recommend some books from a couple of categories for other 9-year-olds that you think they might like. So your first category is a book that's full of adventure.
Captain Underpants and Revenge of Professor Poopy Pants. It's about this guy that's really angry about his name, and he changed it. But he was still after he decided he should get revenge on Captain Underpants, who is really his rival, enemy, mortal enemy.
What is it that you like so much about these books?
That you always want us to keep reading them, and the reason I also like this book is because 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, or I think it was 9, 10, 11, and 12, all have sequels.
That's awesome.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Sorry, 12 doesn't have one. Sorry, 12 doesn't have a sequel. Definitely.
The second book that I was going to get you to recommend, although you already recommended 12, but still I'd love another one, is a book that you think that every 9-year-old should read.
9-year-old should read.
Yeah.
Probably Wonder. It's about a boy that has a lot of surgery. He hasn't been to school because he doesn't want to. He's homeschooled, and if he ever does have to go out, he wears an astronaut helmet.
Why do you think it's an important book for 9-year-olds to read?
Because, how he has to be nice, and there are actually some pretty good precepts in there. And between the choice of being right and being kind, choose kind.
And how did you find that book, Wonder? Did you get it from school or mum or dad, or how did you find it?
Our teacher read it to the whole class.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Xavier. And, audience out there, you don't know the backstory, but there was a lot of effort put into this interview to get young Xavier on the phone. He's kind of like a movie star. He's sort of hard to track down and lock him down for an interview. So we really appreciate you giving us your time, Xavier.
Yeah. Yeah, like mum getting super frustrated with the computer.
Yeah, there was a little bit of mum getting frustrated with the computer, wasn't there?
Yeah.
But we got there in the end. That's the most important thing. So thank you so much, buddy, for joining us. That was awesome. Okay, bye. Next, we're talking to Elby. Now, Elby's only 6 years old. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started on the Top Reads team, Elby?
Auntie Beck.
Ah, what does Auntie Beck do?
She's got a website called Alphabet Soup.
Ah, so book love runs in the family then. So, Elby, can you tell us a book that you would recommend for 6-year-olds that makes you laugh out loud?
Brith the Terrible.
Brith the Terrible, great recommendation. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about what Brith the Terrible is about?
Giants.
Giants? And what do they do?
Tickle.
And why is it your favourite book?
It's funny that giant has hairy armpits.
That is very funny. Do you have hairy armpits?
No!
Because you're not a giant, right? Only giants have hairy armpits.
My dad has hairy armpits.
And what's another book that you like?
The Big Book of Tashi, of course. Plus the Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls.
Oh, that's a great book. Can you tell me a little bit about that one?
It's like this book about girls who've had a really good life.
Can you tell me some of the girls that are in the book?
Just a sec.
Okay.
Sorry, I just got paper cuts.
Ooh, ouchie, I hate paper cuts. Hope you're okay.
Let's see. Ada Lovelace, Alec Weck.
Do you have a favourite girl from that book?
Ada Lovelace.
Ada Lovelace, good choice. She's pretty amazing. Why is she your favourite?
Because she's a mathematical.
So not only are you a book fan, but you're a maths fan as well. That's pretty cool. So we've probably got time for one more. Have you got one more book you want to tell us about?
Anders and the Volcano.
Tell me about that one.
Just a moment, I'm getting it.
Okay.
Okay, back.
Okay, that was quick.
That's because it was right next to me.
That does help things, doesn't it?
Okay, so there's like these three friends and they've all got these bugs that can fly and they hop on their backs. And they were at Mount Tremble National Park and there was a volcano and they flew right inside the volcano and steam came out.
Whoa, so it's a bit of an adventure book, is it?
Yeah.
Awesome, Elby. There's some great book recommendations. Thanks for chatting with us. And lucky last, we have Matilda, who's the oldest member of the team. Hi, Matilda. Thanks for joining us here today on One More Page.
Hi.
As we know, you're a member of the Top Reads team from Alphabet Soup. I heard a rumour that when you turn 12, you have to retire from the Top Reads team. Now, I believe you're 11, so that means that retirement is coming up for you pretty soon. Can you tell me a bit about how that works?
Well, we decided that when you turn 12, it's the right age to retire because you start reading young adult books. And so I think that it's time to step down because it's not really good for primary school students.
And so is there some kind of big ceremony where you get like a gold watch and everyone pats you on the back as you walk out of the office?
Not really.
And so how are you going to spend your retirement, or are you going to get another job?
Well, I'm going to keep reading and writing, and I was thinking about maybe sending some book reviews. I've just heard about this online magazine called Spine Out, and I was also thinking to write a whole lot of short stories to put all together in a book and maybe one day get that published.
So is that the ultimate goal? Do you want to be a writer?
Yes.
What they say is that if you want to be a writer, you got to read as much as you can, right?
Yeah, I read a lot of books.
I guess you don't get a job on the Top Reads team unless you read a lot of books, right?
Well, yeah.
Awesome. Well, can you tell me a little bit about what you do as part of the Top Reads team?
So basically, you read lots of books, and once a month you submit your favourite books so other people can see it and read those books too.
And do you just choose whatever books you want, or have you got some kind of like a brief, or, are there certain books that you're asked to review, or just whatever you're digging?
No, it's just whatever you are reading at that time.
Okay, cool. As we've asked some other members of the Top Reads team, I'm going to get you to recommend a couple of books for us for kids your age. Now, Matilda's 11. The first category for you is a book that transports you into another world.
Well, there are two books that I like. The first one is A Time Slip. It's a time slip series by Belinda Murrell. So basically it's about these different children in different times, different places, and they travel back to another time and look at their ancestors and what they do and learn things about them.
Oh, I haven't read that one, but it sounds really cool. What was it that you like so much about A Time Slip?
Well, I really like how it draws you into another time and you learn about that time while also learning about a story and traveling along with the character. The other book is the first book in a series called The Ataban Cipher. It's called The Book of Secrets. This is in another world, and so, they have to solve a mystery where they get this book and they need to find out what it means.
Yes, I'm very familiar with the Book of Secrets, actually. In fact, for listeners out there who might like to have a read of this book, I have a sneaking suspicion that we may be giving away these books very soon. So, Matilda, tell us what you liked so much about the Book of Secrets.
Well, I like how it's really different from our world today, but you can also connect with the same things that they have in that other world.
Now, here's the big one. I've left this one for the oldest member of the team to answer because, it's one of those heart-tugging ones. What's a book you can recommend that made you cry or almost cry? And they can be happy or sad tears, either way.
Well, one of my favourite books is the Once series by Moritz Gleitzman. It's set in World War II, and it's about a boy that is Jewish and he needs to run away First time I read it, I had to stop reading it for a while because it was really sad. Then I had to pick it back up again because I just had to finish it.
And what is it that you ended up liking about it, even if it made you cry?
Well, I liked how, it makes you feel emotional and lots of these different feelings. And I like how aware it makes you about how things are.
Yeah, I can imagine. So in school, had you already learnt a little bit about World War II, or was this sort of your first introduction to it?
Well, we'd read a few books like this at school, and so my mum recommended this book to me, and I read it, and it's a bit of a deeper insight than some of the others.
Wow, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. There'll be lots of 11, almost 12-year-olds that'll be digging around in your book recommendations, I'm sure. So thank you so much for joining us today, Matilda.
Thanks for having me.
Kids Capers!
Wow, some fantastic interviews there, Nat. That's great. And heaps of excellent recommendations from the kids, which we will put into our show notes for all of our listeners. Also in the show notes, we'll have some information about Alphabet Soup, where you can find them online if you'd like to see more book reviews by kids. Also, they have author and illustrator interviews and writing and art competitions for kids as well. So it's definitely worth checking out. All right, so now it's time to move on to our listener question. What have you got for us this week, Nat?
Today, our listener question is from Theo. Theo's 11 years old and from New South Wales, so let's see what he wants to know.
Hi, my name is Theo. I'm 11, and my question is, what was your favourite book as a kid, and what emojis would you use to describe it?
Oh, I love that question from Theo. That is so fun. It's really hard to just pick one favourite, but Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was always one of my favourite books as a kid. And the emojis I'd use to describe it are the chocolate bar with the wrapper half off, of course, the little twinkling stars emoji because it created a lot of magic, the top hat emoji for Willy Wonka, and maybe the old grey-haired man emoji for Grandpa Joe because I always had a soft spot for him.
Okay, so my favourite book was Sky Maze by Gillian Rubinstein. So emoji descriptions would go something like running boy, running boy, running boy, running girl emoji for Ben, Mario, Andrew and Ellie because they're always running in that book. Then game controller emoji to represent the computer game. Then cloud emoji for the sky. And then I'd write to emoji headquarters and demand, where is the maze emoji?
That was an excellent book. I also loved that when I was a kid. I wonder if it feels a little dated now because it was all those really classic games, wasn't it?
No, well, because the Sky Maze in particular is that it doesn't actually sort of describe what the game is. So you could transition it straight to PlayStation easily.
Perfect. Okay, so my favourite book, probably around the same age you were reading Sky Maze, I was reading Thunderwith by Libby Haythorne, and emojis would be the lightning emoji because of the storm, and the dog emoji because of the dog. So Thunderwith is a dog who arrives in a storm, and there's kind of this, it's like the cranky face emoji, but that's not red, that's just regular face because there's this really mean, nasty bully kind of guy, and the blowing nose tissue emoji because it's a book that starts off just as her mother dies, so you're gonna need tissues.
And maybe the teardrop emoji because yeah,
actually maybe the the floods of tears,
the bawling eyes out emoji.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so now it's time to discover something we're obsessing over or something new we've discovered lately. Nat, what's on your radar?
Okay, so obviously we're huge fans of kids reading, but we're also huge fans of kids writing. So what's on my radar today is the Young Writers Awards, which are being announced, drum roll, today. So if you guys haven't heard about this, then you need to stop doing your homework right this second, kick your big brother off the computer and check this out. Go to youngwritersaward.com.au. It's a kids writing comp and it is awesome. It's open to kids aged between 9 and 13 and it has 2 categories. Picture books with a 250 word limit and short fiction, which is between 800 and 1,000 words. Other than just being a really cool competition that encourages kids to write, the most awesomest thing of all is the prize. So first place in both categories gets you a $250 Red Gum Book Club voucher and, get this, your story gets made into a real live book. As in it gets edited and illustrated and published for distribution in Australia. How cool is that? So Jump on the website and check out this year's winners, and then sharpen your pencils and get your creative thinking caps on, because the 2018 comp will open in May and you've got to be in it to win it.
Wow, maybe I'll enter.
Soz Kate, you're like totes too old.
Oh.
So don't forget, next week we're going to be chatting to Jessica Walton about diversity in picture books, as well as finding out how she got her big break via Kickstarter.
Sounds awesome, but wait, does that mean it's time to say goodbye?
No, we want one more page.
Well, it is, but don't cry too hard, because we'll be back in a fortnight with another episode of
One more page.
Thanks for listening to this episode of One More Page. Read the show notes and find all our episodes at www.onemorepagepodcast.com. Don't forget, you can also subscribe via the iTunes Store or your favourite podcast app.
We love to receive listener questions and hear any kids' book news or reading recommendations. Chat with us on our Facebook page or find us on Twitter and Instagram at OneMorePageAU. You can also email us at onemorepagepodcast@gmail.com.
A big thank you to Marianne Koo, who does all of our illustrations. That's it from us this time, but we hope you can join us next time for one more episode of One More Page. Alright guys, who wants some bloopers? Liz is still going since episode 2. We've lost her.
Here we go.
She's gone into ha-ha land. It's like La La Land, but a lot more laughing. Kids can be unpredictable when you interview them. Sometimes they want to talk about books, and sometimes they just want to talk chicken.
I'm sorry, I just really like talking chicken.
That's okay, I totally understand. I like talking chicken too.
Quack!
Okay. Buck, 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 buck.
Quack, quack!
Quack, 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 quack.
Quack! Quack, 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 quack!
Quack, 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 quack.
Quack, 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 quack!
Okay, you win. That was a very important argument, but I think you're right. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen, our crazy chicken lady, Albie. There's just one more thing I want to say before we go, Albie, and that's... Buck, 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 buck.
One more page.
One more page.
One more page. One more page.
Right, that totally has to make the bloopers.
Why? What was bloopery about that? That was totally in key.